Welcome, everyone. We're glad you could join us for our third and final day of this is the seminar, the final seminar for the course on the toolbox for root, tuber, and banana seed systems. So we're going to, we'll just get started. And we're going to hear a few words from Jorge Andrade Piedra. He is going to review our day yesterday. So Jorge, over to you.
Thank you. Jeff, can you see my screen?
Yes, I can.
Okay, thank you. Excellent. So welcome, everyone. This is Jorge Andrade Piedra. I'm one of the co-leaders of the RTB seed system community. So I'm going to provide a little bit of a recap for the final day of this training event. So we are in a seminar, in a training event for the toolbox for working with root, tuber, and banana seed systems. And just to remind you, this is the toolbox. We have a nice website where you can find a lot of information about the tools, the methodology that we have developed. We have 11 tools. Plus a glossary, and for each of these tools we have a description sheet, a user guide, peer review publication, and technical support available. This toolbox is replicable, it's open source, all the information is ready to be accessed, and is backed by science. So we always have always validated these tools in real life conditions. The toolbox was officially launched in March 2021, a few months ago. And then we started a training course on the RTB Toolbox. So for this, we first organized a training event presenting the tools. This was presented in July 2021, a couple of months ago. If you go to this event site, you will find all the information, the presentations, etc. But the main idea was to present the tools with detailed description of what to do, of what the tools do. Then continuing with this training course on the RTB Toolbox, we started fieldwork. And for this, we selected 3 teams, one team from Uganda, one from Tanzania, and one from Ethiopia. And they conducted actually fieldwork using at least one of the tools in their conditions. And this was done from August to September 2021, that's it until the last month. And now we are in the second training event. So the idea is for the teams to present the results, okay? So we started on Monday. We have the presentations from the Uganda team. They presented results on banana and cassava using 2 methodologies, 2 tools, Foursquare method and the means and chain analysis. And then yesterday we have the presentation from the team from Tanzania. And the crop that they are working with was sweet potato. They use seed tracing, and they provided nice insights about how the planting material of sweet potato is being disseminated through farmers' networks. They show that how farmers are willing to pay, by other farmers still relying on non-financial mechanisms to exchange planting material of sweet potato. Then we have 2 discussants. One of them was Fetien Abera. She talked about farmer-based seed systems using TEF in Ethiopia as one of the examples. And she highlighted that farmers can be seen not only as beneficiaries, but also as partners, taking advantage of all the information and all the experience that they have managing farmers-based seed systems. And finally, we have a presentation from Lawrence Kent. He provided the vision of the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation about vegetatively propagated crops in Africa. So it was a nice presentation. And today we are in the final day of this training event for the toolbox. We will have the results from the Ethiopia team. So looking forward to see the results. We have 2 discussants. We have Tayeta Desai and David Spielman, who will discuss the results from the Ethiopia team. And then we have 2 presentations, one from Carlo Fada. He will talk about the place of seed systems in one CGIAR initiative. And Ian Barker about the strengthening links between breeding outputs and seed systems. Our facilitator, Jeff Bentley, will talk about next steps, what we're going to do with the the teams, with the three teams that we work with. And finally, Margaret McEwan and Connie Almekinders will present the graduation ceremony for these three teams. So that's it for the recap, Jeff. Thanks, and back to you.
Okay, thanks very much, Jorge. Before we move on, I just want to make a brief announcement. Many of you have been asking if the PowerPoints will be available or other materials, and yes, they will. We're going to post on our website, we're going to post a recording of the sessions. We're also going to post the PowerPoints, and we're going to have a summary, or what do you call it, a proceedings volume, which will have your questions and answers. So all the material will be on our website. So we won't be sending it out individually, but you can all check out our website and download any of that material that you're interested in. And by the way, all of our material from last session in July is already on our website. So give us a week or so and we'll have everything from this seminar uploaded as well. We're a minute or two early, but I don't think that's a problem. We can get started with the Ethiopia presentation. We're delighted to be able to listen to this presentation. It's from Ethiopia. It's on potato, and they've used the multi-stakeholder framework analysis. So
good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you may be listening in from. The team from Ethiopia is privileged and honored to present you the results of our work on stakeholder network analysis for developing a sustainable seed potato value chain in Oromia region of Ethiopia. This is part of the work on testing and training on one of the tools under the RTB Toolbox for analyzing seed system of these crops. To present this work from Ethiopia is Asede Solomon from Ethiopian Institute of Agricultural Research and me, Rogers Kakwenzile from CIP, on behalf of others listed on this slide. Asede will take us through the first part of this presentation, and I'll come in later to complete the exercise. At this point in time, I take the honor to invite Asede to get us started.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Rogers, for giving me a chance to talk about our work and to give as an introduction on potato generally. As introduction, the agricultural sector in Ethiopia accounts for about 35% GDP, 72% of exporters, and also 80% of the total employment is secured from this agriculture sector, and this sector is dominated by smallholder farmers and also nomadic pastoralists. Drought, soil degradation, and overgrazing are common in most agroecologies, reducing land productivity and crop yields. Improved farm inputs are scarce, low in quality, and expensive, although as food production remains largely traditional. Similarly, agriculture extension service delivery is inadequate, food production low, hunger is common and needs permanent solutions. Potato could be one of the crops to solve these problems in Ethiopia that would contribute significantly towards food security and income generating. Potato is important in Ethiopia because it serves as for food security and cash crop for most smallholders in Oromia, Amhara, SNFP, and Tigray regions. It has potential to feed high population densities in highland agroecologies because of its short maturity, high yield, and good nutritive value. It is currently grown as a field crop produced 2 to 3 times a year as rain-fed or in irrigated agriculture. It is first among roots and tubers in production area and tonnage, and one of the major food staples in the country. However, potato national yield is below expected potential, partly due to the use of poor quality seed, which is the focus of this study. The national average yield is about 30 ton per hectare, but progressive farmers can get up to 25 ton per hectare, and 35 ton per hectare also can be harvested at the research stations. There are many causes of this low yield. Some of them are poor agronomic practices, high incidence of pests and diseases, low level of potato technology adoption, low yield or inappropriate varieties for different ecologies, and lack of quality seed in most potato growing districts. Seed quality impacts very much potato productivity, and it is defined by the variety and the seed health. The potato variety we use must be suitable for a given agroecology so that it can perform to its potential, and the seed should be of proven health since potato is prone to degenerative viral and bacterial infections. We have to be sure that our source is reliable. And disease-infected seed significantly contributes to low yield because viral infections cause seed degeneration, affecting tuber yield. Latent bacterial wilt infection, the seed also results in early plant wilting and death, and field bacterial wilt infection may lead to tuber rotting before harvest, and after harvest, infected tubers may also have a low table quality and short shelf life while storing. And quality seed potato in Oromia is scarce and potato yields are low in general. Thus, it is imperative to design evidence-based strategies for developing sustainable seed supply system to build a profitable potato subsector. So the objectives of this study was to analyze linkages and gaps along the potato value chain and design intervention for developing a sustainable seed potato supply models in Oromia region, to examine how the potato seed system functions and actors that are involved in order to identify areas that require optimization for improving seed potato delivery in the region, and to identify research and development interventions that would enhance seed quality, affordability, availability, and accessibility for most smallholder potato growers in the Oromia regional states. So we use a method for this study, use multi-stakeholder framework analysis as a base tool. We identified and prioritized potato value chain stakeholders and developed a valid checklist per stakeholder category. Then we conducted 20 farmers group discussion with seed and ware potato farmers. We also held 17 key informant interviews with institutional stakeholders. Additionally, we collected secondary data on cropping patterns from various publications and reports. And finally, the data was processed and collated for comprehensive content analysis. As a sampling method, the sampling frame for this study was based on defining zones and districts where potato growing is popular, classifying actors that move the potato value chain, identifying stakeholders who are value chain enablers as key informants, and the selection of participants as key informants was purposive and based on their knowledge and experience of potato cropping system, and also willingness to share their experiences on the crop and their time. This slide shows the study sites, and we selected 3 different zones in the region, and 11 districts under the 3 zones. In the central highlands of the Oromia region, we took 3 districts, and in the eastern part we studied 4 districts, and in the southeastern part we also included 4 districts for the study. And within these 11 districts, we had 22 abalis to be studied, to be included in the study. In this slide, I am having a focus group discussion with women farmers in one of the Kabbalists in East Hierarchy. Sometimes we found that to have a separate discussion with women farmers alone so that they can express themselves freely and to get the information in detail from the women farmers. However, there are also bigger groups. Bigger groups, they can say whatever they want to say in the joint groups. By this, I'll wind up my presentation and I will hand over to Dr. Rogers so that he can continue with the rest of the slides.
Thank you very much, Asede. I pick it up from here and take you through the results of the study, the observation we made, conclusions, and our recommendations for improving the seed rate of origin in the Oromia region. We interacted with at least 12 stakeholder categories. However, the highest proportion of the representative stakeholders were from farmers, and seed product producers, people from extension and support services. As we go up the administrative ladder, we started meeting the key informants from those stakeholder categories. That's why the number begins to decrease, because we don't expect to meet so many people in that group of stakeholders. Farmers besides potato grow other crops, and we find that in 8 of the 11 districts, potato is either in the second or third position, basing on the land allocated to this crop compared to other crops in every cropping season. We tried to find out what kind of potato varieties are being grown by these farmers. We found that they grow both local and improved varieties. Nevertheless, amongst the improved varieties, Guden and Belete were the most preferred, while the rest of the improved varieties tend to take a secondary position. And in rankings across each district, we found that this local varieties literally they get a lower rank compared to improved varieties. And in only one district, the farmers were not growing and did not report growing any of the improved varieties. We asked farmers the criteria for picking on those varieties, and invariably, whether it's local or improved, it looked like the attributes are the same, except in a few cases, they all want varieties that are high yielding, marketable, good taste, and high maturity. However, in improved varieties, they would like to have varieties that have got long shelf life and disease resistant, where among the local varieties, those with short dormancy and easily accessible variety of seed were most preferred. Well, it's not surprising that disease resistance is not mentioned in local varieties, because most of them are anyway susceptible to pests and diseases. And they told us sometimes they grow these local varieties because they don't have any other choices. It's what is available, that's what they plant. Where do farmers get seed to grow where potatoes? The two principal sources of seed that were identified during this study were on-saved seed, followed by seed from local growers located within the community. However, in 3 districts, we found that farmers get seed from local traders who also double as ware potato dealers. So it's most likely that some of the potatoes which are not marketed as ware potato, they are kept sprouted, and that's what is sold to the farmers as seed. Then in small rare cases, in some districts, farmers get seed through other sources like local market exchange, maybe in form of gifts, and that's what they use to grow their ware potato. Farmers cope with seed scarcity by growing their own seeds. Usually, sometimes a farmer may grow a plot separate from others, look after it properly, and then that's where you get seed for the next planting. In it's really small holder farmers, some just plant a small piece of plot of land behind the homestead, safely protects it, and that's why you get seed for the next crop. But in extreme cases, farmers get seed from ware potato fields, and When they harvest, they pick big tubers and sell them. The next size is used for home consumption. Then the very small tubers, which are most likely to be infected with diseases, are what is kept for seed for the next crop. Where potato farmers face many challenges, but major amongst them is prevalence of leaf blight and insect pests, mainly cutworms when it gets dry. Limited access to a fair wire potato market, which is dominated by brokers. Expensive and timely delivery of fungicide of fertilizers. Scarce, low quality and expensive fungicides. Shortage of cash to purchase farm inputs and lack of access to credit and other financial services. Field operations are manual, labor intensive and difficult, particularly for women, and lack of technologies and skills to store both seed and wire potatoes, and majorly insufficient seed of improved varieties. That's the reason why in a number of districts, farmers are still growing local cultivars. Shortage of quality seed is not peculiar to potato, but other crops that are grown in Ethiopia. In an effort to increase the quantity of quality seed that would be available to farmers, the government came up with an idea of production of QDS through decentralized seed multipliers. The decentralized seed multipliers, they consist either individual farm operators producing as independent seed growers, or as cooperative seed grower cooperatives who operate as a group. The purpose of using farmer seed group cooperatives as a model to deliver seed was it enhanced smallholder participation in agricultural cash economy, besides improving their access to quality seed at affordable cost. How do the decentralized seed multipliers operate? As mentioned before, DSMs may either operate as individuals or in groups of as seed cooperative groups. Usually they receive foundation seed from agricultural research centers for free. They don't pay for it. The farmers say they are satisfied with the seed quality but not quantity delivered. And the main potato varieties produced are Gudeno and Belete, either or both. In the operations, they must have an internal quality control committee as a legal requirement, and they may engage an external seed regulator for quality assurance under the QDS arrangement. However, in Ethiopia, the external regulator can inspect not more than 10% of the fields. The rest is handled by internal quality control committee. The operations of the decentralized seed multipliers are gender neutral, although in the farmer seed group cooperatives, the representation of women is very low, particularly in administrative roles. But on the whole, the farmers indicated that the seed potato business is generally profitable. Decentralized seed multipliers, like where potato growers, have got a multitude of challenges, and major amongst them is leaf blight, which is prevalent. However, they say they're able to control it with the fungicide sprays. Bacterial wilt occurs in some fields, and the disease has got zero tolerance standard in seeds potato certification. And any field which is found with visible symptoms of this disease fails to pass the test and therefore cannot be allowed to be used as seed. And therefore the farmer loses, or the group of farmer loses, and therefore that's a loss and a discouragement. And even if the crops are passed, farmers are not able to detect latent bacterial wilt infection in both in field and in storage. And therefore, seed which looks like clean may pass as may be passed and then distributed when actually it is infested with bacterial wilt or viruses, and therefore end up disseminating infections. It was also evident that most farmer seed group cooperatives have poor linkages with where potato farmers and depend on agents or brokers for seed marketing, and therefore they end getting lesser return from their effort than they would actually get. And it was also clear that foundation seed from early generation seed producers is very inadequate and a serious bottleneck to seed potato business growth. Farmer seed groups do exist, and this slide, one of our colleagues was interviewing a farmer group cooperative, seed group cooperative in Wolmea district, and it had a fair representation of women. I was present on this, and there was very good participation of women in answering some of the questions and contributing to the group discussion. Out in the field, we visited a few decentralized seed multipliers, and the first we visited was a lady seed multiplier. She had a very wonderful crop, very high yield, and we think she's going to get good yields and good seed. Then below left is one of the caretakers of the farmer seed group co-op field. This field fails in one management practice. The crop should have been homed much earlier in terms for seed production, but it's not some of the things we can look at in future when we improve the seed system. And on my right is one of the farmers in Jerry district. He had about 2 hectares of variety Gudenia. The crop looked healthy and nice, and we expect him to get good yield and probably very high quality seed from this field. Why is early generation seed so scarce in Oromia region? There are a number of causes for that, but the most important is that the Holeta Research Center is the only recordable source of EGS and has infrastructure and human resource capacity limitations. There is generally absence or limited activity of sustainable public and private sector companies in EGS production. Potato EGS has been left to public research institutes, and they produce so little that can go anywhere. However, there are some few initiatives that are coming up. For example, there is the Wagnos with the tissue culture lab, which produces some tissue culture plantlets. However, it's still inadequate, and they only produce on order. It's not readily available to everybody who comes in. You have to put order to get supplies. There is a private seed company, Soragro, which produces some certified seed beginning with mini tubers. Sometimes they also prefer to operate on order, and they produce also for a few farmer seed group cooperatives that are linked to them. We found that even if there is a tissue culture lab at Holeta and at Wagnos, these labs are small and they operate suboptimally, so their production, they produce below capacity. And generally, seed quality control is inadequate and depends on visual assessment that even if you produce all this seed, you may not be sure of its quality, even if it looks like it's EGS. So the causes of low EGS production include limited funding, an imbalance in staff specialization at Holeta. For example, there's lack of well-trained technicians, much as we've got well-trained scientists, but we still need technicians to run some of these production labs. There is regular power outage for tissue culture labs at Holeta and at Wagnos. And also at Holeta, they have got automated greenhouses, which will not operate without power. And the moment power goes, it means there's loss of material, and that makes production difficult. There's limited space for indoor mini tuber production, both at Holeta and at Soragro, and there are limited green fields for outdoor seed bulking at Holeta. And there is lack of motivation among able seed multipliers to invest in EGS production. Probably they expected to get it free from Holeta, since that's what has been happening. So if we have to increase early generation seed production, we've got to bring other actors on board. After all, we have been depending on Holeta and other research centers produced and deliver seed potato, and that's not going to be sustainable with the demand of seed that is all over. However, we may increase private actors, and we think that Wagnos would increase tissue culture plant production, link with Soragro and other EGS multipliers, e.g. Romia Seed Enterprise, to produce first generation mini tubers if they can agree on the terms of engagement. Wagnos and Holeta would identify and engage multipliers willing to invest in mini tuber production as the first step in the early generation seed production chain. Soragro would also consider expanding its certified seed production including production of first generation mini tubers linked with other decentralized seed multipliers, further bulk the seed and make it available before it is made available to other potato producers. Oromia Seed Enterprises of late has developed a business plan to invest in seed potato production, and it is timely. And once they come on board, it would be critical that they systematically follow through the rules and the regulations of producing certified seed in collaboration with other actors in the seed value chain. Some key observations were made in regard to the seed potato value chain basing on the seed system characteristics. And we begin with seed availability. We find that EGS is majorly produced by public research centers is insufficient, partly due to inadequate support in infrastructure and human resource capacity. That most of the seed produced by public institutions is given out for free. That the volume of EGS from the current private sector producers is not known and probably it's insignificant. And the current EGS producers lack adequate quality control mechanisms to ensure that the seed that is the foundation of agricultural production is clean and safe. That the EGS delivery channels do not guarantee that the distributed seed is bulked and used as seed once more before it is used in ware potato production. And the roles and responsibilities of public and private research sector actors in EGS production and delivery need to be revisited and redesigned. In terms of health of EGS, we found that both internal and external seed quality control rules are poorly executed, that seed regulatory bodies are inadequately supported, resulting in poor quality assurance, because they are ill-equipped, underfunded, and have got few specialists. Therefore, insufficient institutional capacity for quality control results in distributing seed that is infested with disease, leading to poor potato yields. We further observed that decentralized seed multipliers rarely renew stocks, and they fail on this certification criteria of seed origin and seed traceability. We also find that there are management flaws and lack of business acumen in most farmer seed group cooperatives, and therefore they don't perform optimally. And there is also limited participation of women in most farmer groups, particularly when it comes to administrative roles. And this fails the need for holistic socioeconomic growth across the gender divide. Thus, inadequate human organizational capacity results in poor availability of quality seed at farm level, leading to low potato yields. What can we conclude and recommend from this study? We found that we need to revisit the roles, capabilities, and delivery models of public research centers to supply and deliver EGS to other users. We need to invest in rapid development and release of more preferred user varieties using participatory breeding methods to enhance variety uptake, considering that many varieties have been raised in Ethiopia, but only a handful are being grown commercially. We need to recognize EGS production and delivery involving more and productive private sector actors. And we need to analyze and redesign the decentralized seed multiplier model to deliver so that they can deliver ample quantities of seed to most farmers at affordable cost. And we need to conduct a needs assessment of seed regulatory bodies to design interventions for enhancing their effectiveness and efficiency. And we need to undertake willingness to pay studies for quality seed potato, especially among smallholder farmers, because it will not be useful if we produce seed that farmers are not able to afford to pay for. And we need to develop a seed tracking mechanism along the production chain to improve efficiency, effectiveness in seed potato supply. So overall, we recommend that we consider long-term and integrated investment in human and infrastructure capacity to further develop the functions of all actors in the seed potato value chain. And we also recommend undertaking profitability analysis for various stages of production in the seed value chain to explore the best approaches to support public and private sector actors in an integrated and sustainable way. By participating in this, what did we learn? We learned that the use of multi-sector framework analysis is a fast and participatory method for generating information that can be used in designing interventions and seed systems than other conventional methods that we know of. And it provides a platform for peer learning in multidisciplinary teams. It's a good way of processing qualitative data generated from storytelling and conversations to identify solutions to problems in a logical way. And stakeholder communication and interaction is often less stressed in R&D interventions and rarely recognized as a possible source of intervention failure. And we learned new tools, ways, and methods of communication. We say thank you to people who helped us in this job. The list is long. However, we'd like to recognize the contribution of Mohamed Jailo and Alem Jambo for their support in data collection, Jeff Bentley, Conor Camidas, Margaret McWan for their invaluable guidance. And finally, we acknowledge the technical and financial support primarily from RTB with additional funding from GIZ Seeds of Change project in Ethiopia. This is Team Ethiopia. On the right is our team leader, Dr. Setanya Gabeahu. On the extreme left is Hairep from Ambo University. The rest of us in the middle with our three ladies who kept the team spirit high, and we got this work done in the little time that we have available to us. In case you need to know more about this subject, you can contact us through our team leader whose email address is displayed on this slide, and much more will be included in our technical report. What I can say is that you've been a great audience, and we found the RTB Toolbox very useful in helping to understand the seed system of these crops better. We've found a number of new areas in which the RTB different tools in the toolbox can be used in understanding and explaining the seed system in Oromia. And we look forward to have future collaboration on this subject and more to make seed potato availability better in Ethiopia so that farmers can get better yield and more income and fight hunger and poverty and improve their lives.
Okay. Thank you so much, Rogers and Atsidi, for that excellent presentation. Before we move on, I just want to take a moment and recognize that all three of our study teams were working under a certain time pressure. This was some of the first work to be done as the COVID restrictions were easing, or they all had to deal with COVID and the time pressure, and they've done a wonderful job, and I just want to highlight that. Next, we're going to hear some comments from Dr. Tayeta Desai. He is the crop director of EIAR, the Ethiopia Institute of Agricultural Research. So, Dr. Tadese.
Thank you for the interruption, and we had a network problem just for a moment. This is Taye speaking. It's a great opportunity. It's a pleasure for me to stand in in front of this audience to give some my key remarks, not only specific to potato, generally related to crops. And I'm a crop director, research director in the Ethiopian Institute of Agriculture Research, and EIR is mandated to develop technology addressing the challenge in the agricultural system and also create demand on the technology we are generating. And at the same time, we are also required to multiply startup technologies like EGS multiplication, prototypes, and as a crop directorate, we are mostly focusing on multiplication of EGS and work with the extension wing to promote the technologies. And so far, EIR generated about more than 790 improved varieties on a number of crops. Potato is one of them. And the country have a federal and regional research system. And as an institute, we have already contributed about close to 60% of the variety we released in Ethiopia were derived from EIAR, and we are also doing research on a number of roots and tuber crops. And so far, we have released about 75 varieties, from which potato accounts 34 of them. And most of these are only registered by the Federal Research System. We are also working with the private company to lead varieties through adaptation of new technologies. And so the biggest challenge we had is in terms of, reaching out technologies to the end users. And we have made some assessments so far. We were only able to reach out 30% of the technology we have generated so far. The major gaps we have are mostly the weak extension system we have in general in the country, and mostly for some of the crops, like the root and tuber crops, the extension and the seed multiplication schemes are not very much functional, and the research system are mainly doing the seed multiplication, the demonstration, and to some extent the scaling up of this horticulture root and tuber crops. And that's why we are very much far behind in terms of, reaching out to the end users. And if you just check the age of the varieties, like Kudene and Ballet are the dominant varieties now farmers are just currently growing, and the age of these varieties is just more than 10 years. And so far we have varieties just recently released, but in terms of reaching out to the wider community and getting the best product or the best technology are the major challenges we have in the research system. And we have also made some just a study on the adoption, and in general for field crops, it's not more than 50% of the area grow in the country covered by improved varieties, just even less than that. Just annually, the amount of certified seed just produced by the former seed system is only account not close to 20% of the total area. So there is a weak extension and seed multiplication scheme in the country. And the other challenge is also access to the poor value chain we have in the country, and that is the major hindrance for farmers to put their money for purchasing improved varieties and improved technology. And unless farmers are getting better return for the products they're producing, there is no pulling factor for the technology to go to the end user. So just these are the major hindrance for the technology generation, and also for the technology to reach out the end user. So what we're now currently doing is we realized we have a huge gap between the research potential and the national yield potential. And we are now trying to reach out to large number of farmers through different pathways, like large-scale demonstration, and also clustering different number of farmers together to produce a specific commodity, and so that we can have better product, and that will go to that will have a better market access. And I think in the past 2-3 years, there are a good progress in terms of reaching out to the number of farmers, but this initiative were on specific crops, and we need to expand to different crops that have a huge potential for security and also mitigating climate change, like in areas where water is drought stress is a challenge, we need to come up with technology that make that suitable for that specific environment, and also reach out to the end users. I think the root and tuber crops have a very comparative advantage just to address food security in a very small plot of land. So I think this needs further effort. The other initiative we have is strengthening the seed system, and the fact that there are very few private seed sectors in the country, and also access for EGS is the biggest challenge for them. What we are now just trying to do is we start to implement decentralized EGS multiplication for a center. As I've said, we have regional research centers, and these regional research centers are mandated to provide and access technology for the nearby farmers. So we capacitate research centers to multiply breeder and pre-basic seed, and those seed growers, the formal and the informal seed growers, can have access for EGS and produce seed for the local community. And this is, I think, as of this year now, we will implement this modality for effective delivery of the technology. The other option we are now trying to implement is licensing varieties that have breeders' right, just specifically the private seed companies can get the license from EIR to multiply and do the extension and promotion of the technology we are generating. So most probably, just as from now onwards, any products that are coming from the research system and are protected by the breeders' right will go directly to the seed growers and for seed companies who licensing, and we are planning to commercialize technologies we are generating. The other intervention now we have is the fact that just in terms of having better genetic gain and increasing efficiency of breeding, we need to do more, and we are now trying to modernize the breeding system in a way to increase, to have better genetic gain. And we have so far the amount of genetic gain we have achieved in a number of crops is not more than 0.5 to 0.8%, which is less than 1%. So just it is more advisable to have better genetic gain to have to address the increasing food and feed demand in the country. So just we are targeting about 1.5 genetic gain. For this, we have different intervention, targeted breeding, reducing the breeding cycle, also use of advanced tools in the breeding program. These are we have already started this initiative in a few of the crops, and we want to expand to a number of crops, like potato will be also one of the crops we are just looking for to use advanced tools, and with our partners we want to have better impact in potato research and development. And the other initiative we have, in fact, this is and by the new government setup, the private sector engagement on research and development is not well developed, and just there is an interest from the government to engage the private sector on research and development. And so far, specifically some horticultural crops, we have limitation in generating technology, and we want the private sector to take up the research and also do engagement on research and development. So just there is a policy initiative to effect the private sector engagement on this sector. So these are the ongoing efforts so that we can have a better impact on research and development in the country. I think as it was presented by the team from Ethiopia, seed is the very challenge for increasing production and productivity in the country, and we need to support and work out hard for access and better impacts for the crop we are targeting. So Thank you very much, and I'm very much happy to participate in this meeting.
Okay, and thank you very much, Dr. Desai, for joining us. Thank you for your remarks. Next, we're going to hear from David Spielman. He's a senior research fellow at IFPRI. David, take it away.
All right. Well, thank you very much. It's a pleasure to be here. I'm sorry that there's so much distortion in the lighting. I'm here at the Ministry of Agriculture in my office in Kigali, Rwanda. So it really is a very nice pleasure to be here. That's sorghum in the background, not potatoes, with my apologies. Let me start by appreciating the presentation from our colleagues in Ethiopia. I think my role here is to be a discussant and ask some questions or offer some thoughts on their presentation, because it raised a lot of interesting questions for me. I remember doing field work in Ethiopia. I was based in Ethiopia for 6 years, and I was in Jandamora Wareda, which is in the Simien Mountains in Amhara regional state. And I remember thinking at that altitude and with those types of soils, it would have been a great place to produce seed potato. Unfortunately, it's incredibly cut off. It's on the southern and eastern side of the Simien Mountains, making it really difficult to think of as sort of a seed potato production area, simply because it's so far from even Dabark or any of the markets in that region, much less Oromia or southern region. So I was always looking for seed potato potential in Ethiopia, and I always found it exciting to think that, wow, at this altitude with these soils and potentially with these markets, there was so much potential. So I'm glad that this work is continuing on, and that's about 15 years after I was working on this topic a little bit. So let me start by appreciating that in the intro, our colleagues explained that while potato yields are low, progressive farmers can get up to 25 tons per hectare and 35 tons per hectare at research stations. It's important to remember that potential yields from station trials or even from progressive farmers do not and should not represent that which is realistically achievable. Deviations from the production frontier or causes of low yields at smallholder farm level are often explained by a combination of both observable and non-observable factors, many of which were suggested by the presentation. But it's always important to keep that in mind. I don't want us to create expectations about what can be achieved on the yield frontier when we don't really know how to meet those expectations. So that would be sort of my first point. It's just an appreciation for how the presenters approached that particular point. I want to reflect a moment on methods, because this is, after all, the RTB Toolbox workshop. I've been giving some thought in recent years to the various multi-stakeholder frameworks that have emerged to guide both research and practice in our field of agriculture development. In principle, I agree that it's critical to take sort of a systems approach to understanding actors, their interests, their relationships, and the incentives they face to address complex problems like the potato seed systems development in Ethiopia. But I'm still sort of scratching my head and asking myself, when is a multi-stakeholder framework a development practice, and when is it a research tool? Or is it both? It's because it seems to be used in this study as an action research tool. And I appreciate action research as much as the next person, but I'm not clear on whether that's the intended use of a multi-stakeholder framework analysis. So I get a little confused on sort of where we are on the continuum. So my biggest question in that context about methods is if you use this method for analytical purposes, how do you think it might be received, or how will it influence decision making? Because remember, your study's objective is to identify areas that require optimization for improving seed potato delivery. So will a multi-stakeholder framework analysis, does that have the sufficient saliency, rigor, and credibility to influence what key players think about that system? Or maybe to shift, to have recommendations that actually shift or change their thinking. And the key player here, in my mind, is in many ways local government. So that's the bureaus of agriculture at the Kmele, at the Wareda, the zonal and the regional state level, because they're the ones who guide public investments. They're the ones who implement or enforce regulations. They're the ones that help form cooperatives, so on and so forth. Do you feel that this action research approach has or the qualitative insights you pull from it, and from what's admittedly sort of a small purposive sample of stakeholders, can actually help them optimize for improving the seed potato delivery system? So that's just something to reflect on. What are the right tools to achieve sort of the aims and objectives of your research? And this is a good one. And the question is, in the next step, what more will be done methodologically? Finally, in terms of findings, I really appreciate the descriptive insights that were provided by this study. I'd ask the team if there's anything that surprised them in their research, or in their study, or caused them maybe to change their prior views, or maybe change them to reject their initial hypotheses that they built the study around. It seemed to me that the findings were fairly straightforward. They reinforce a lot of what we already know about the seed potato system in Ethiopia, but I'm looking for something novel or an insight that actually might be unknown to us. I'm particularly interested in the role of cooperatives as decentralized seed multipliers. One of the things that I did research on in Ethiopia when I was based there, and what I really still care about, is the role of cooperatives. I like to understand how cooperatives are governed and managed. How do they manage their finances? How do they give dividends to members? How do they generate revenues? How do they distribute non-monetary benefits, both directly and indirectly, to members and non-members? Cooperatives in seed systems development are a very powerful vehicle in many countries, especially for veg-propagated crops like potato. I know in the United States, in Europe, in China, in Japan, cooperatives play a big role in many of these areas, not just producing quality seed for their members, but also producing quality seed for commercial purposes in some instances. But we also know that in many countries, cooperatives are politicized. They tend to be exclusionary or non-inclusive, and they can be poorly governed and managed. So this, to me, is an area for future research that I'd love to see or hear more about from the team, and what stock they put in these mahabars, or these yagabere mahabars, or farmers cooperatives. And on the last point, I think I will say this: the study came out with a very firm conclusion that the Oromia Seed Enterprise needs to implement its seed potato business plan. I take issue with that. Oromia Seed Enterprise is a very big player in Oromia, and we recognize that. It's also a state-owned enterprise. So let's think about this a little bit, right? State-owned enterprises require an allocation of scarce public resources that the Oromia regional state and the federal government of Ethiopia may or may not have to give to seed potato, compared to, say, many other public investments they need to make in health, education, roads, R&D, so on and so forth. So if Oromia Seed Enterprise goes ahead with the seed potato business plan, is this an optimal use of public resources? And importantly, will it crowd in or crowd out other sources of seed potato? Now, if it's only up in the EGS world that Oromia Seed Enterprise is working, and then they're supplying, you know, cooperatives, individuals, and private companies with early generation seed potato, maybe that's, you know, a pretty optimal configuration. I can understand that. But if we're talking about Oromia Seed Enterprise being a purveyor, a seller, a provider of seed potato, I think you need to ask yourself, does that crowd out other actors in the market? What's the hypothesis there, and can you test it? But you know, those are just some thoughts that came to mind when I listened to the presentation and read it over last week. And I congratulate the team for a really thoughtful presentation and a thoughtful piece of research. It warmed my heart and made me think of having potatoes for dinner, just because, you know, it's such a great topic. So well done, guys. Thank you very much for sharing this with me.
Well, David, thanks very much for your analysis. And now we're going to move into the question and answer session. So we've had a lot of questions come in, and the Ethiopia team has also answered some of them in writing. So what I want to do is scroll down and find one that hasn't been answered yet. So just a word of reminder, would everyone on the Ethiopia team please turn on your cameras and your microphones, and we'll read a question. I'll read a question, and then one of you could answer it. So Rogers, you know the team very well. Perhaps you could select a person who could answer the question. So we have, okay, here's one. This isn't the first one. A lot of the earlier ones have been answered already very nicely in the chat by Setenia. Thanks for that. So here's one from Mihireto Undayehu, who says, there is no guideline for inspection and certification of EGS potato. Shouldn't this be one of the recommendations? So who would like to answer that?
Can I answer that, please?
Yes, please.
The guidelines for potato, they are available for both certified seed and QDS. So there's no hitch, there is no bottleneck there.
Okay, super. Here's one from Majuwana, who says, thank you so much for the well-organized and informative seminar on, that seems to be a comment on the seminar as a whole. Here's one. So we have one from Keen Nying Tant, who says, I would like to know the factors of quality control in the seed potato. The factors of quality control in the seed potato. Who would like to take that on?
Maybe I take on it as last one, then I will check on other questions. The factors to quality control in potato. Does she mean the standards? I'm not picking exactly what she wants to say, but to make it simple and straight, the main factor we look at, particularly in Ethiopia in our case, is to avoid latent bacterial wilt. Latent bacterial wilt, it's like my video, come on.
It's okay, Rogers.
Yeah, latent bacterial wilt in seed mainly. Then the others is how is the seed stored, and does the farmer, the producer, is he registered? Is the variety registered? Is seed traceable? Where did he get the seed from before he multiplied it? Does he have the competence certificate in place? So when all that is done, then the producer's crop is ready for inspection. But until now, much of the inspection was being done by visual assessment. Right now, we are running a study comparing the visual assessment against laboratory assessment for latent bacterial infection, and we are going again to call the regulators, have them in the meeting. We say, this is what you look at with your eyes, and this is what we found with you by seeing and then running a laboratory assessment, and then gradually we'll be there, and we'll agree how do we handle in the future seed health before we say we go this way or we go that way, we use our eyes or we go laboratory assessment. But recall, every time you add an extra testing seed, it means it's going to be an extra cost in the cost of seed. You have to factor all that, and you find the users going to afford to do that. If it's worth doing, then they will pay for it.
Okay, super. Here's a question from Jacob Walla, who says, as plant health is vital for production of quality seed tubers, are there plans in place from SIP to collaborate more with plant inspection authorities or focus more on plant health? So are there plans from SIP to collaborate with the plant inspection authorities on plant health? Who would like to answer that?
Yes, maybe I can try that one.
Yes.
Yeah, thank you very much. Hello, everyone. Actually, during our study, we've met, I think, about 4 of them.
Even all these standards were developed in collaboration with the CIP. It's not CIP to do that. It's a regulatory authority, and we are working gradually with them so that we are on the same footing in terms of seed health.
Yeah, and exactly that is the reason also we included one of our team members is from the plant, the seed inspection service of the ministry. So yes, we are very much interested. There are a lot of gaps we have identified, as you will see it in our report, and there are many areas that we can collaborate with them because right now it's only one of the branch offices that is engaged in the seed quality inspection, and we want them, all of them, at least 4 in Oromia. There are 6 of them in Amhara. We have several of them. So we really want to work with them in the future.
And actually, Dr. Satanya, to add that, you see, I said this, there was additional support from GIZ, Seeds of Change project. We are during field inspection, it was a team from the National Research Arrangement, SIP staff, and then the regulatory people from regulatory. So we are doing it together. Right now, they are in the lab. They are doing it together. They are learning along the way how it is done and how can we do it better. So it's not SIP running the business. No, it's a joint effort.
Yeah.
Super. Okay, we have a question from Tayeta Desai, who says, excellent presentation. Congratulations. In your actors analysis, how did you evaluate the priority given by extension system to this crop so that the seed system can be strengthened as a key step in the seed value chain? So how did you evaluate the priority given by the extension system to the potato crop?
That's a very interesting question. And I'm very happy that Dr. Taye will still be around. Because in almost all the districts and the zones and the region where we had these discussions with different stakeholders, and particularly with the extension service, one of the things that came out as the most important bottleneck or challenge is the attention. currently, all those current government strategies and current government initiatives in relation to clustering or commercialization, they are more of serial oriented. I mean, we have to be very honest on this, and we have asked the extension service at the district level, for example, who are on the front line to provide that service, and they literally give no service to potato farmers. And to the extent farmers themselves coordinate themselves and they look for seed, and they don't even get the kind of support to get a quality check with, let's say, an expert in the area of seed. And they have also several limitations themselves, but the attention given to potato is, it's really very negligible, I can say. So I think if my colleagues from the ministry were, they will really agree with me, and of course with the bureaus of agriculture as well.
Okay, great. Here's a question from Jacob Walla, who says, hydroponics is another area for producing potato seed tubers, which are free of disease. Is it an area that has been studied under the RTB Toolbox? So have we used the toolbox to study hydroponic potato seed?
May I
Yes,
reply
please.
for this?
Please do.
Okay, hydroponics, yeah, as a research station, we had some time ago with the SEEP project, with the help of SEEP project, but it needs continuous supply of consumables and many other technologies, and also support financially. But to look for in the RTB studies, there is no such infrastructure in other bodies. Only in our station, it was established some time ago, and when the project is ended, we cannot continue that, but we are trying with the SEEP, with the support of SEEP. We are trying to have hydroponics, aeroponics also. So we know the technology very well, but we are not using it. And also, in addition, we don't have these private and public seed producers, seed multipliers. So there are smallholder seed producers, so they are not using this technology.
Okay, thanks for that. I see we've also got a couple of responses in the chat to that question, one from Abebe Chindi and one from Jorge. So don't know that we need to read those out loud now, but you can check those out, and we'll also include them in the proceedings. Here's another question from Tesfaye Desta, who says, how did you perceive technology uptake versus aggressive extension service to the level farmers are demanding? Do you think the limitation to mainly 2 varieties stated is due to the proper level of communication through extension? So I take that as a question on extension quality, which Dr. Desai mentioned. Okay, so what is the, does anybody want to add anything to that, the quality of the extension service?
I can just try, and then Abebe can also add on that. I think the issue with the delivery of potato technologies in general, well, as I already mentioned, there is an issue of attention. But even then, there are efforts through the research centers, through NGOs, and also through the local agricultural offices to try to demonstrate these technologies. But I think it has also to do with the quality of our varieties, to be honest. You know, the variety, you saw the list in the presentation in terms of the varieties that are currently grown. But if you look at the proportion, it's just about 1 variety. It's about Gudani. It's almost like, yes. So that means we really need to also strengthen our breeding program, whereby we develop more varieties, more options to farmers. I think farmers have tried some of them and they didn't like for different reasons. There is an issue of market. There is, of course, like 90% of potato production in Ethiopia, 75 to 90% for market. So if those varieties do not meet the requirements, the production itself is market driven. So I think there is a part of it that research should address through variety development, but the extension is not really also that aggressive like other crops. So I think this is what I can say. Maybe my colleagues, Ababe, I think, who's been dealing a lot with extension, can also add if there's anything remaining.
Yes, thank you, Dr. Satay, for your information. May I supplement a few words? As you said, there are a lot of varieties developed in the region from Holata and other stakeholders, other regional and higher learning institutions. Regarding its adoption and or variety uptake and the demand, even though there is a high demand, the problem is with the shortage of the EGS. There is no as such high volume of EGS delivery for the smallholder farmers, and also, as you said, the extension is cereal based or cereal based, and everybody is talking or running with the cereals, so that the potato farmers can get few information as well as few support from the extensionists, so that they are doing almost by themselves. Especially the EGS production is all dependent on the public research institute and also on the universities, so that even though if they want to produce more than 2 or 3 varieties, where they can get the seed, where is the EGS? So as we know that still we are looking for investors or other private stakeholders to be engaged, and those public research institutions and also universities and the seed enterprises that developed by the government also has to take attention for the potato as that of cereals like maize or wheat, unless otherwise, or the extension service also should be established for the horticultural sectors. Even we discussed with the state minister several times to have extensionists for the horticultural crops, because of this is a short growing season, and we can also sell within a short period of time to get foreign currencies, but still we didn't get extension service for horticultural crops separately. All crops are almost started together for the lowland, for highland, for the mid altitude, for cereals and for horticulture. Unless these issues are resolved by the Ministry of Agriculture, still we hope that the problem will continue. It is a persistent problem, so that it is not in a well position to have a good extension service for potato. Thank you.
Okay.
Hello, Jeff.
Thanks very much for those.
Sorry, Jeff, I think we are out of time for the Q&A. Over to you.
Okay, thanks, Nathan, for that timely reminder. Yes, we have there's a lot more interesting stuff in the chat. There's some insightful remarks from Dr. Abera, but we don't have time to get into that now. What we are going to do is we're going to turn the floor over to Carlo Fada. He's the Research Director, Biodiversity for Food and Agriculture. So, Carlo.
Yes, thank you, Jeff, and thank you for the organizer for inviting me to this very important, actually greetings from Addis. I mean, well, normally I'm based in Nairobi. At the moment I'm in Addis, so kind of familiar, and I've been living in Ethiopia for over 3 years. So it's a country we're also very familiar. But today I'm not talking about Ethiopia, I'm talking more generally about the place of seed systems, the One CGIAR initiative, particularly focusing on nature positive solutions for productivity, resilience, and inclusive growth that I'm leading together with our colleague Josiane Nikema from IMI. And I was asked by the organizers also within the context of my presentation to also give an overview of where there is the CGIAR, few slides on the CGIAR, a few slides about the nature positive solutions, and finally a couple of slides on the importance of seed systems in the context of the nature positive solution. So what is our research and innovation strategy aims to do? I think the picture on the left side of this slide gives a very good overview of what it aims to achieve. So it has impact areas, agriculture, and health, one of the impact area. Poverty reduction, livelihoods and job, which is the second impact area. Gender equality, youth and social inclusion, it's the third. Climate adaptation and mitigation contribute to diversity, again recognizing the fact that agriculture is responsible for land degradation and biodiversity loss, and those are very important, particularly in the context of the nature positive solutions. And the way to do that, the way to achieve those positive measurable benefits, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, because I was having a funny message on the screen, is by scaling research and innovation. So the impact pathway is not only about the research, but about making sure that the research is adopted through capacity development, innovations, and policy. And this is the leap through regional and global CGIAR initiatives. We will see in the next slide what these initiatives are about. And it will work across three action areas. One is system transformation, which aims at a kind of broader, holistic interventions on the system. The resilient agri-food system, which is more the action that happens in the farm or within community. And finally, the genetic innovation, which is the breeding, the delivery, but again, with a lot of innovation in there, for example, breeding as being informed by market research. And so they draw on global best-in-class capabilities and the ways working on the system transformation, strategic alliances, multiple pathways, risk and resilience and innovative finance and digital revolution. And critically important is the collaboration with partners in all research and innovation for impact. So the aim for agenda for this research and innovation strategy is really to be demand-based. So this is how the system works. No? So from the research perspective, we have the three science groups, the three action areas: system transformations, resilient agri-food system, and genetic innovation. They work with a number of global initiatives, but also 6 regional integrated initiatives, recognizing the specificity of each region or sub-region. So one being West and Central Africa, East and Southern Africa, Central and West Asia and North Africa, so Siwana, Southeast Asia and the Pacific, South Asia, and then Latin America and the Caribbean. And each of these regional integrated initiatives needs to be linked somehow to the global initiative, but they will primarily address challenges as they are identified for each of these regions. And then each of the strategic the science groups or action areas are divided into global thematic initiatives. So there are 11 in system transformation. I'm not going to go through all of them because otherwise, I mean, I was given 15 minutes. There are 9 in Brazil, but what is interesting, for example, and going to the topic of my initiative is that, for example, a lot of initiatives, for example, related to reduction of greenhouse gas emission or to adoption of agroecological approaches are part of this group. And then resilient agri-food system. As I said, this is where interventions will be more in the ground, less at the political level and more in the ground. And in fact, you can see here that you have a number of initiatives that are really specific for the farm level, like, for example, excellence in agronomy for sustainable intensification, livestock, climate and system resilience, protecting human health. So One Health approach is implemented on the farm, plant health, very relevant for the work on potato, but many other crops, sustainable animal productivity, livelihoods and nutrition and gender inclusion, sustainable intensification of mixed farming systems, resilient cities through sustainable urban and peri-urban agri-food systems, resilient aquatic foods and healthy people and planet, and finally the nature positive solutions enhancing productivity and resilience. So they are really kind of all of them in a way or another, and using different framework, but really trying to bring up that element of sustainability in agriculture and the management of production system. And the third one, which is genetic innovation, and that has the gene bank, which is a very important source of diversity, and accelerated breeding platform, and network for enabling tools, technologies, and shared services. So how these technologies are going to the countries, market intelligence and product profiling. So make sure that the breeders don't work in isolation, but they have information about what the characteristics of the varieties, developing genetic gains in farmers' fields, delivering, and that is a seed system part, so how the CGIER material can be delivered in a more efficient way. We've heard of all of the problems of early generation seeds, etc., for specific for Ethiopia, but how the adoption of these varieties can be improved, and then accelerated crop improvement through precision genetic technology. So this is more on the biotech side. So that's a little bit the framework under which the nature positive solution operates. And as I said, this is an agenda. So whatever I'm presenting now needs to be linked to other, to a number of other initiatives. So let me tell you a little bit more in details what is nature positive.
Hello, Carlo.
Yes.
Hello, Carlo. This is Nathan. You have 2 minutes. You wrap up in the next two. Thank you.
Okay. Okay, so that's the framework. It's about how the kind of damage that the system does, the modern agriculture, and particularly industrial agriculture, does to the environment. Major areas are land degradation, biodiversity loss, waste, malnutrition, water, and climate change. I'm sorry, I cannot go into any more details. The key question is really how we can reimagine and co-create and implement agri-food systems that deliver food and livelihoods on the ground while ensuring that agriculture is a net positive contributor. So not only zero, but actually net positive contributor to staying within planetary boundaries. We are going to do this. I'm sorry, I cannot explain, but nature positive, the framework that we adopted is exactly the one that was developed on Africa, on the UN Food System Summit.
Carlo, it's okay if you take a few more minutes.
Okay, thanks. No, sorry. So, I mean, so the nature positive agriculture is characterized by regenerative, non-depleting and non-destructive use of natural resources. There is a concept of stewardship of environment and biodiversity, so biodiversity becoming an important element for critical ecosystem services. It's about protection, sustainable management and restoration of productive system. So this protection, management and restoration are critical. And it is mindful of the need to produce enough food, but also healthy food. And so based on that framework, the initiative is structured into 5 work packages. One is about conserve, not only the conservation of biodiversity, but also conservation in general of natural resources. And that's a little bit the accumulation of natural capital that is needed to manage the production system. No? So whatever is conserved is linked to the management of production systems. So how then you manage the biodiversity, the water, the soils. As we have indicated, agriculture creates land degradation and then move to open up and clear new land, so triggering biodiversity and further environmental loss. And so restoration becomes an important part of the work package. We want to bring back those areas in production, so the pressure for clearing new areas will be reduced. Waste, as one of the major impact of industrial agriculture, needs to be recycled. It can be an opportunity and an option for communities for livelihood, circular economy. So it's really an income, could be an income generation opportunity. And finally, engage, which is really about the social inclusion, the capacity development, the policy, so more on the social economic side. So let's go now quickly to the seed system. The idea is that if you have a lot and I use it just this as an example, but if you need a lot more diversity, it means that you need to have healthy seed for all of them. Healthy seed and high quality seed is not only needed for the major crops, and recognizing that it's a problem, you know, that even in potato, which is an important crop for Ethiopia, it's difficult to get the attention of extension and the producers of early generation seeds. So for even less, for minor crops and a number of the diversity that we have in mind, that could be even more challenging. But the idea is that we need to amplify the portfolio. We want to diversify those production systems. And so for the different crops and varieties, we want to really work with the farmers in order for them to be able to choose and to identify which one are more suitable for the environment, and then engineer or design production system where this diversity is in there. And for each of the crops and varieties that the farmers check, for example, using crowdsourcing approaches and testing under their own condition, whatever works better, give a feedback to the seed actors and make sure that then a tailored set of varieties and crops can actually be made available for the farmers. And in a kind of iterative process, and also the new diversity then is injected into the system, farmers are testing, and the seed system becomes reactive to the demand coming directly from the farmers through this participatory approach. So basically what we have is we have a collaboration between international initiative and legal instruments. So obviously the international research centers play a key role. Collaboration with Seed Equal that you've seen earlier is one of the initiatives of the genetic innovation, is obviously important. So this is where the international research centers are located. Legally, the framework that we foresee is the International Treaty on Plant Genetic Resources for Food and Agriculture, with access and benefit sharing and multilateral system, but also working with the national programs and the national gene banks, because they harbor and they host diversity that can really become very useful for the farmers. And then the smallholder farmers, the vulnerables one, will receive the material, as in the process that I've shown in the previous slides, and they communicate directly with seed multipliers and suppliers, making use of digital tools and digital technology. And we believe that this approach and this idea of conceiving food system as very much participatory, maybe building on the cooperatives, strengthening the system of cooperatives or community seed bank, could be a way to ensure that the quality of the seeds is good enough to address some of the issues of the small vulnerable farmers. The project is going to be implemented in Burkina Faso, Colombia, India, Kenya, and Vietnam. And thank you, and sorry for taking a bit longer.
Okay, thank you very much, Carlo, for your presentation. We're going to move right along now to Ian Barker. He is the program director at the Global Potato Agri-Food Systems. So, Ian, take it away.
Thank you, Chair, and hello, everybody. So my name is Ian Barker. As you say, I'm the head of the Global Potato Program based at SIP, but I'm also the leader of the Seed Equal initiative that Carlo just put into context for you. And many thanks to Carlo for explaining the context in which these initiatives sit within the 1CGIR. And thank you for taking the time to do that, Carlo. And equally, I understand, James Legg, a colleague who's a work package leader within the Seed Equal initiative, I think gave an introduction to the initiative itself, and particularly the work package that deals with RTB crops. So I don't need to go over that again. But what I was asked to speak about today is this links between breeding itself within the 1CJR and its national program partners, and seed systems within this context of the 1CJR. So I'm really speaking today across crops, not with my potato hat on, but really with this hat on as the leader of this Seed Equal 1CJR initiative, which sits, as Carlo pointed out to you, alongside breeding within the genetic innovation action area. So obviously what we're talking about here, and this is a difference from a key difference from what Carlo was talking about. The material that we're talking about here within genetic innovation obviously stems from our breeding programs, public breeding programs. So we're looking, if you like, to recognize the value of that breeding material, those new varieties, and make sure that the traits that are embodied in that breeding reach smallholder farmers, so that we can get, as it was mentioned actually earlier, from the Ethiopian situation of potato, reduce that average age. We don't want to see farmers only growing varieties that are more than 10 years old. And we'd like to get those benefits from breeding into the hands of farmers. Whereas as from Carlo's Nature Positive Solutions, of course, there are other sources of germplasm which we recognize. And obviously, for example, Carlo mentioned the importance of in situ conservation, and of course, underutilized crops as other sources of germplasm, of course, which are equally important to farmers. But within the context of genetic innovation and the context of this Seed Equal initiative, we're very much focusing on the delivery of seed, of quality seed, of improved varieties from our national program breeding partners. And the first thing I just wanted to say a bit about, how we do this, and actually a very critical question of the different steps that I'll talk about in this process. Who does it? And we heard a bit about that, again, in the context of very nicely put in the case of potato in Ethiopia. This is really context specific. We must always remember that, the difference between different crop types, different crops, and obviously different countries and different regions around the world. So just two examples here that I was been personally involved in. One there is hybrid maize in Madhya Pradesh with tribal communities in India. That's working with a women's group, farmer producer organization in India, getting some seed of new hybrid seed of new maize varieties from a local NGO that specializes in seed production. And in this case, these are new drought tolerant maize varieties with utilizing maize African drought tolerance from CIMMYT material from Africa, if you like, taken to South Asia, in this case in India. And also these are varieties with a very low cost of seed production, a very high seed yield. So they're very affordable varieties. So these are low cost, drought tolerant maize varieties to plug a specific gap in 3 states in India. Also, interestingly, the comment was made by EIR colleagues about private R&D. This actual breeding was done, this is using public germplasm, but actually private breeding, but then delivered through small seed companies or even NGOs. And of course, in this context, you see the slide on the right-hand side, that's a demonstration trial run by a small local seed company in this region. So in the case of hybrid maize, which has a high multiplication rate, a clear business model. All this that was also made about the offtake markets. All this maize is destined for commercial animal feed, so there's a ready market for this. And we can reach out to seed companies like an Indian seed company here on that right-hand slide called Saiji Seeds, are prepared to take on the job of taking that and producing that seed commercially, certified seed, or in this case, truthfully labeled seed in the Indian context of farmers. But equally, they are managing the early generation seed production as well, entirely themselves, as long as we can supply them with high-grade breeding material, parental lines. Then on the left there, you see cassava. In this case, I took this photo. This is in Namalongi, Nakri, in Uganda. And here's some work on seed production research. But cassava, and our vegetative crops, the subject of these toolboxes, because we have low multiplication rates, sometimes crops which are more, more subsistence-oriented crops. Of course, many of these crops are entering value chains, cassava for flour or brewing or for starch production. But you can see here, interestingly, I just showed this photograph because it brings out this difference between these crop types. Here we are trying to increase the multiplication rate of cassava with small seed pieces, and extend the shelf life of that material by dipping those seed pieces as well. Maize, of course, maize seed we can store for many years, but our vegetable. So the context, what I'm about to talk about next, is very much dependent on the type of crop we're involved in, and the country that we're involved in, the level of sophistication, if you like, or development of the seed sector. And in fact, in the Seed Equal initiative, we break it down into work packages where we look at the vegetative crops, the hybrid cereals differently, and even the self-pollinated pulses, pulse seed systems. Yeah, they're not hybrid, maybe less commercially attractive to the private sector. We may not see the private sector getting so much involved in the early generation seed, but of course they have they don't have a great seed multiplication rate, but of course you can store the seed for much longer. So even the crop biology, if you like, determines some of these factors. So just to the topic that Margaret asked me to talk about, this is a slide I got from Margaret, where if you like, these 12 toolbox, these tools sit, and there's a sort of a stylized seed value chain. And a stylized seed value chain there. Margaret calls this a bit of a dinosaur slide. It's a bit sort of linear from left to right, but it serves a function. And what I wanted to show you, so that's where these 12 tools fit. Of course, here in the case we were talking about, and again, context again, there's this nice slide there. If you're interested for potato seed system from Kenya, work done by my SIP colleagues, these are rooted apical cuttings produced by a decentralized seed multiplier on there. But interestingly, the early generation seed for those rooted apical cuttings done by private sector, with private sector tissue culture labs, and then large horticulture flower companies producing the mother plants that are then supplied to these decentralized multipliers. So again, in some contexts, the difference we've just heard about the EGS situation for Irish potato in Ethiopia compared with Kenya, a very different context again, where in Kenya, we can reach out to the private sector much more so than we can, say, for example, at the moment in Ethiopia, let's say we hope that will change. So this is now, so what we see here in this stylized diagram, you have the plant genetic resources that Carlo explained, that bigger picture. So this is coming down at a more narrower level within that nice big picture that Carlo showed of the big seed sector, if you like. So this is zooming in down, and you see breeding as a separate step, if you like, to early generation seed production, and then to certified seed production or seed production through farmer-based seed systems, and that involves, if you like, a boundary, what we call a handover from breeding to seed production. And what I wanted to show you again is zoom in one step further and then think a bit about where these tools might be able to fit. So if we zoom in a little bit further, this is a diagram which we call what's called a stage-gated product lifecycle scheme for variety development and delivery. Now these stages, this is borrowed from private sector, the way a private sector seed company would think about this evolution, if you like, this stage-gated system from breeding, R&D here in the orange, that's breeding, through to then crop marketing and what they would call commercialization, what we would call dissemination of or delivery of seeds of those varieties to farmers. And they break down these stages into these like numbered systems, so that 1 to 4 is R&D and breeding, and then 5, 6, and 7 is that early stage, if you like, marketing demonstration of these varieties, and then choosing finally the varieties that we think really meet the farmer's needs, meet the market needs, and that should be scaled, if you like, by, in this case, through partners. Now, a couple of things to say about this is, if you were what's called an integrated seed company, you might be doing breeding as well as the testing and then the delivery of those seeds. Let's say an Indian vegetable seed company. But for many of the crops that we're talking about, that we're interested in when public funded research, public funded breeding, it may well be that the breeding is public breeding, though it's really interesting, that comment from Ethiopian colleagues about the possible role of private breeding. But we may look to other partners outside of development partners, be it NGOs, civil society, seed companies, David's cooperatives, farmer producer organizations, to actually produce the seed. So there's a handover there, that big traffic light. And that handover is something that we've been concentrating a lot on in the design of the Seed Equal initiative, because that handover doesn't necessarily happen naturally between public breeders, as we heard in Ethiopia, and then the next day up the developed partners who can take those varieties and multiply them to high quality and get them to farmers, whether it's private sector, whether it's public sector, whether it's a state enterprise, whether it's a cooperative, whether it's farmer-based local producers. And at each of those stages, the idea of this stage-gated system is that we need to define using a system like this, we can actually define the decisions that need to be made to advance a variety through this process, and discard those that don't meet the criteria as we go. And we've been developing tools on how to do that. And that's what those little traffic lights mean, with the big traffic light between breeding and marketing. Of course, this needs to be integrated, but what we're also saying is that the skills needed to do the green side of that might be different from the orange side, the breeders. They may well be in the same organization, they probably need to be, but sometimes not as we hand over. And that's the area that we are very interested in. And that green box in the middle is very much the area that the Seed Equal initiative looks to, from what's called late stage breeding, which is called PLC 5, through to introduction. That's like handing it then over to, say, the next stage, the partners that we work with, in the sense that the CGIR, and David made this point about, public and private and crowding in and crowding out, to what, we are not a seed company, and we should not attempt or even think or consider ourselves as seed companies. We need to be interested in this handover process. Well-characterized varieties that meet market needs, that need farmer needs, can be handed over. And another critical point, I think, to some of the points that are also being made, in making these decisions, one key element is who sits around the table. Do we capture the farmer's voice? And we envisage a very important role for social science colleagues in guiding this decision making about which varieties we choose to promote, which varieties we choose to discard. So again, zooming in on that a little bit in more detail, if you look at those stages, PLC 5 to 8 in the green there, you can see sitting under that, to actually execute this, we need to develop plans. We need to check our varieties. We need to do much more on-farm testing with farmers. That needs planning. We need to produce seed for those processes, to do that quality seed, even for the trials. We need to check that those varieties meet the original requirements that the breeders and even before that, the people developing what are called the product profiles in another team, which will be set up, another initiative within the 1CJR genetic innovation area, which will be called market intelligence, will deliver their best intentions of what variety should meet the target, but we need to check that at this stage and go through an iterative process and a feedback process to check that which material is meeting the needs of farmers on farm trade. But we need to then plan the production of that seed. We need to make those partnerships in terms of downstream production. We talked a lot about early generation seed, you see there. It's interesting, colleagues from Ethiopia even talking about licensing. We need to register.
Ian?
We need to register varieties.
Sorry to interrupt you. We're about out of time. If you could wrap it up in a minute.
I think we're there. Thank you. So what I was just saying was those processes, if you see there, need tools. So I can imagine, and I can, going through these seed tools, I can see readily where many of these tools sit within this framework. And I think also to the point of, and that also to the point that, and I just put a few of them there. I think that's it. They fit naturally within some of these processes, either at the beginning of the process or things like seed tracker in terms of certified seed, tracking quality seed as it leaves this system and to helping the partners, the downstream partners on the seed delivery. So I just wanted to finish there and say, it's clear to me how some of these tools fit the needs of some of these processes that sit in this advancement process whereby we can monitor progress through the system. And I think that just the last thing I wanted to say, I also very much agree with what David was saying. I think in doing that, we need to look again at these tools and think a bit about whether they're research tools or can we adapt some of these tools. I think have this role of guiding these next stage actors in the seed value chain in planning and carrying out and executing these kind of stage gate processes. And I think that's the end. Thank you.
Okay, well, thank you so much. Let's see, I'm going to share my screen and I'm going to take a few moments and talk about the next steps. So, what comes next? Each person who attended at least 4 of the 6 sessions will receive a certificate of attendance. Ian, perhaps you could, I think you're still sharing your screen. Let's see, where are we? All right. Right. All right. Can you see that? You should say certificates.
Not yet.
Okay. Ian, is it possible that you're still sharing your screen?
Jeff, we can see you, but not, you're not
can see
sharing the screen. We
You
can
can see
see
me, but not my PowerPoint. Well, okay. You get a certificate and it will arrive in the mail, in email in a week. The 3 research teams from the 3 countries will also receive a certificate at the graduation ceremony, which is coming up next. All 3 countries are working on a paper. These will be submitted Monday, and in good time, they will be published online on our Toolbox website. As Nicolina de Haan said, we must transform our findings into a better design of seed systems for equitable outcomes. And in order to do that, the 3 teams are writing short proposals, and they will send those on the 10th of November. And those will be submitted for funding, and they will focus on each of those will focus on a seed system intervention rather than on more research. And then we will also write a blog, and we will also post the recordings, we'll post the talks, we'll post the papers. Everything will be on our website. And I just wanted to mention what James Legg said, that next year, Seed Equal will be an initiative of the One CGIAR to deliver genetic games. We also heard from Ian and Carlo about that today. Seed Equal includes the Work Package 3, which is the scaling and delivery of VPC seed. And it also includes the African Center for Innovation for VPC seed. Now, this toolbox is the most important set of methods to implement the work of Seed Equal and the ACI VSS. So these initiatives will have a large capacity development program, and they will be active in seed system projects. So we expect the tools from the toolbox to be involved in the capacity development. We hope that next year we'll be able to offer another version of this course, perhaps online, perhaps in country, or maybe a blend of both. So thank you for your attention. That's what's coming next. And we'd like to ask you to participate in an evaluation. So I'm going to stop sharing. And there's the evaluation. Right. So it's 5 short questions. If you could all just take a moment and complete the evaluation, that would be great. Also, if you would like to leave a comment in the chat on how the program went, then please do that. Okay, so this is the evaluation.
Jeff, let us know when we can go to the second question.
I think you can go right on to the second question now. I was just waiting for you to, I thought you would handle it.
Okay, good.
Okay, question number 2. Question number 3. Question number 4.
And the last one, I will write it in the chat so our audience can give us their comments.
Excellent. Time for the graduation ceremony.
Hello, everyone. This is Margaret McEwen, one of the co-coordinators of the Toolbox training, together with Jorge and Connie. And we're now going to move to celebration. And we're so appreciative of the work that the three teams have done, the Uganda team, the Tanzania team, and the Ethiopia team. So the certificates will come shortly to your emails, but we just wanted to show each team. Yes, so first of all, we have Team Uganda with Lucy, Basil, Emmanuel, Evans and Samuel, and ably supported by Enoch as well. So I hope that they can all be highlighted on the video. And their certificates are here. So congratulations to Team Uganda. And then we move on to Team Tanzania. The photo doesn't have everyone, but the team was Kwame, Deus, James, Hadija, Francisca, Eric, Robert, Adventina, and again, very ably supported by Eric. So congratulations, Team Tanzania. Here are your certificates, and I hope that Viviana and our team can highlight them on the video as well. And then we move to Team Ethiopia, today's stars. So thank you very much, Halib, Wudunye, Alam, Abebi, Lemlem, Astedi, Rogers, and Setem, and Mohammed, who was helping very much in the field. So again, well done, Team Ethiopia. And here are your certificates. Congratulations to everyone. So now I'm going to hand over to Connie, who's going to present the awards. So I'll stop my video and let Connie come on. I'm glad to see, Connie, you've got the graduation hat on. Yes, so over to Connie.
Margaret, you told me that in graduations, one wears a hat. So here is mine. So congratulations, teams. You are now RTB Tool graduates and everything that comes with it. A couple of additional words, because we have been really impressed with the work that you have presented and the quality of that work. And that's especially admirable because the time pressure was high and the conditions under which you worked were also not optimal. Jeff already referred to that. So therefore, we have an additional award for you. And actually, there are here 3 awards that we're going to give to you. Of course, 1 reward for each team. And the first one is the most original, the award for the most original research. And that goes to the team of Ethiopia. And go ahead, Jorge. And the winners are getting this award for the most original contribution because their eagerness to learn was amazing, and that made them engage in selecting and applying 3 different tools in different sites, working in multiple teams. That would have led to comparative analysis, which will come in the future, but could not yet be presented because the data collection has been so enormous. There's another reason why we thought you were the most original in the contributions is because you had initially inserted video clips in your presentations, but that couldn't work with the system. Those videos will be uploaded on the RTB Toolbox website, but could not be shared with the audience today. And then we have an award. So congratulations, team of Ethiopia. The certificate will come to you, and it comes with an additional token of appreciation, which actually will come to your team leader and which you can spend as you like, and preferably on issues that make your performance even stronger. So then we have the next award, and that's for the team that we thought, what we considered to have the scientifically the most relevant contribution. Can I have the next one, Jorge? And the winners of that award is the Tanzania team. The Tanzania team, first of all, you did a wonderful job in your presentation, I thought, in having a very well framed research problem. And you know, for scientists, that's important. And you also impressed us with your data, your graphs, your figures, and of course, in the end, the very nice figure on the social networks. And that actually shows us that some of these tools tend to look like very complicated, but with the nice interfaces that are being made, for example, by University of Florida, those things become very manageable. Congratulations with this scientifically relevant presentation. And you will also, through your team leader, get the same token of appreciation. And then finally, we'll go to the last award. And that is for, well, no surprise, the Team Uganda. The Team Uganda, you did also very well scientifically wise, but there was another aspect on which you excelled, and that is on the gender relevance of your presentation. On the picture, everybody can see that maybe the team was in itself not so gender balanced, actually the worst one, but the team has acted very gender responsive to its team leader. Congratulations with that, Lucy, and the entire team, of course. But also the data that you brought out with the tools that you were applied, disaggregated by gender, and then, you know, coming up with these conclusions and insights on how it works on the ground. We think that that was a really, really relevant experience for the RTB Toolbox, showing how relatively simple tools can still derive novel insights, actually. So all together, the three teams, you will be now actually with these awards being RTB Tool Plus graduates. And congratulations with that. Over with that to Jorge.
Thank you very much, Connie. And congratulations to all the teams. You are the first graduates of this training course on the RTB Seed System Toolbox. This is Jorge Andrade. I am one of the co-coordinators of the cluster on seed systems for roots, tubers, and bananas. The other co-coordinators are Margaret and Connie, and I'm closing the event. So let me provide a few remarks. With this event, we are closing actually a process that started back in 2013, when the CGR research programs, or CRP, were created. So it's over 8-9 years that we've been working as a community of practice on seed systems for cassava, banana, sweet potato, yam, and potato. We are a group of over 50 biophysical and social scientists, as well as practitioners and decision makers. And from the beginning, the objective of this community of practice was to create an evidence-based systematic approach to understand and improve seed systems. And we believe that we achieved this objective with the toolbox that you know now. The tools that we developed have been applied in many countries, actually in 26 countries, 10 crops. So we are not only working on banana, cassava, yam, sweet potato, and potato, but also in other crops, in cereals, pasture, and even fruit crops. And in more than 70 cases. So you can imagine, I think we are doing great with the toolbox. In addition, we have contributed to the scientific community by publishing more than 40 papers in peer-reviewed journals. And you know, if you visit the website, you will see user guides and many other training materials. And also we have contributed with the training and supporting many PhD students, actually 7 or 8 PhD students that have worked with us during these years. So with this event, we are closing a phase, but we are starting a new one, that is capacity building on seed system at scale. And with the teams from Uganda, Ethiopia, and Tanzania, we have the first group of graduates. We look forward to continue interacting with you through 1CG, specifically with the Seed Equal initiatives and also the African Center for Innovation in VPC Seed Systems. And finally, I want to thank, well, the colleagues from Uganda, Tanzania, and Ethiopia for all their efforts applying the tools, especially during these COVID times. Our keynote speakers from Monday, Wednesday, and today. The communication team that has made this event possible, especially Viviana Infantas, her team, and our facilitator and moderator, Jeb Bentley. And our partners, we have an alliance of IITA, SIAD Bioversity, Wageningen University, and University of Florida, and many other organizations that have contributed to the creation and validation of the toolbox. Of course, our acknowledgement to the CGR fund donors, and a final thanks to the team from RTB, especially Graham Thiel, the RTB director, for his outstanding leadership during this process. And with this, I close the event. Thanks for your participation, and keep visiting our toolbox site for more exciting news. So with this, thank you very much, and have a good day, good evening.